Today is August 24th, 2011. We are at the Bank Liberty office in Creve Coeur conducting interviews for the Missouri Veterans History Project. We are going to be interviewing today Ethel Mo, and also in the room with us is videographer John Wehouse, and from the Missouri Veterans History Project, Carl Mitchell and Ethel Mo, and my name is Nancy Kaiser. So we'll go ahead and get started with our interview. Ethel, could you tell me a little bit about your background growing up, whether you heard much about the military or had connections, family members who were in the military?
I was the second child of two immigrants from Russia. And I grew up in St. Louis. When I was born, they lived on South 4th Street, and from there we moved to 4413 Easton Avenue, which is now Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
And we had a fire there when I was 5, so we moved down the street to 5515 or Easton Avenue, across the street from the Deer Street Police Station, and lived there for quite a while. Then we moved to 4644 Easton Avenue, kept going a little west. And my father was an upholsterer, and he had his upholstery shop at 4646 Easton Avenue, and there was an apartment, 4-room apartment in the back, and that's where we lived. We had a fenced-in yard in back of that, and in back of the fenced-in yard was a roofer's yard, where we weren't supposed to go, but you know, kids, I went there.
Right, right.
And from there, I started out at Riddick School, and when we moved to 4646 Easton Avenue, the girl that lived upstairs over the store went to Samuel Couples School, so I transferred to the Couples School and went there, as my younger sister and my younger brother went with me there. But my older brother stayed at Riddick. And from there, we moved to 1483 Union Boulevard, and it was an old doctor's residence, and he had his office on the first floor and still had the cadaver box in the basement. And my father's upholstery shop was down in the space that the doctor had his office with a side entrance, and we had the dining room in back and the kitchen, and upstairs we had the bedrooms and the living room. And Ford's dancing school was next door, and at night we could watch from our bed in through the windows into the classes and learn the steps that they were teaching there. And when I graduated from Couples School in, what was it, would have been 1932, I think. No, 38, I guess it was, because I graduated from high school in January 42. I went to Soldan High School.
So did both my parents.
And graduated from there in 1942. It was very difficult to get a job out of high school. And one of my brother's friends' brother-in-law was connected with Missouri Printing, and I got a job there addressing and stuffing envelopes for $10 a week. And the first week I got $10, the second week I got 12. And I don't know how the other women found out that I got 12, but they raised a stink about it. And the boss said, well, she does more work than you do.
Yeah.
And after that, I wrote a letter applying for a job as bookkeeper. I took booking in high school at Milbrett Power Lawnmower and Rolling Step Ladders.
Sure, I might know Milbrett.
It's out there somewhere, but they don't have the rolling step ladders anymore. And I got the job because of my penmanship on the letter. But when I got to the office, the boss insisted that I use a staff pen and dip it in the ink, and it was terrible. The books looked horrible. And so I took out my pen that my older brother got me for my graduation, an accountant's pen, a Parker pen, and I started writing with it. And my boss said, "Oh, he's going to be mad at you. You can't use that." And I said, "I'd rather be fired for doing a good job than for doing a bad job."
Right.
When he saw the books, he let everybody use a pen.
I can't believe they still would use the ink and the dipping it in there.
Well, that was 42.
Yeah, but
Well,
was that
Parker-
common at that time?
Yeah, Parker pens had just come out.
Oh, okay.
It was a big deal. I still have that pen.
Yeah.
And I stayed there until I joined the Navy. And I told them when I took the job that I was only going to be there a little over a year because I was going to join the Navy. Nobody believed I would. Of course, they didn't have women in the Navy then.
Right.
And when they did finally pass the bill on July the 30th of 1942, I wrote a letter to the Navy Department and asked to join the Navy. And they sent me a letter back saying, "We thank you for your interest in the Navy, but suggest you wait a year till you're old enough." And they let me take the written exam 2 weeks before my birthday, but I couldn't take the physical until the day of my birthday. I took the physical in the morning and was sworn in the afternoon and left 3 days later.
Wow. Now, what year was this?
That was 1943.
Okay. What, several years before that, or some period of time before that, you had it in your plans, it was in your mind to join the Navy. Why was that?
I liked water. When I was, I guess 2 or 3 or something like that, somebody asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, "I want to be an old maid scrumma with 20 kids."
And so before you joined the Navy, were you in the waves or not?
There were no waves.
Oh, no waves yet. Okay.
The waves were started July the 30th of 42.
Okay. So you finally were, and what age did you have to be to join?
You had to be 20. World War II, we signed in on December the 7th, 1941. I was still in high school. I graduated high school in January of 42. And some of the boys in our class left without graduating.
Yeah.
And some of them did not come back either.
Right. So you were 20 years old, you enlist in the Navy, and 3 days later they ship you off where?
To Hunter College in New York for my boot training.
And what were they training you to do?
We had classes in the accounting method of the Navy, which through the years has changed 3 or 4 times.
And then from there, what was your assignment?
From there, that was Indiana University. That was after Hunter College. Hunter College was just the marching and the indoctrination. And that was
so
1 month.
The accounting was in
Indiana University.
Were you the only woman in your
We were all
class?
women there.
You were all women there.
Yeah, this is the
class.
graduating class from there.
Okay.
And at that time, and that was 1 year after they started the waves, we had 88,000 women on active duty.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I think
They moved fast once they started.
that's a story that I haven't heard, and probably the role of women in active duty is probably a story that has not been told or not been told
Now,
enough.
most of our fighter pilots are women.
Women, I know that. Yeah, absolutely. So after Indiana, and you had your accounting training, where were you stationed?
I was stationed at Bainbridge, Maryland, Naval Training Center. It was formerly the Tome School for Boys, and had a gold feather vane. And muddy streets.
And What was your job there? Were you? You said
I worked in
bookkeeper,
the
accountant.
dispersing office.
Okay.
I typed transfer pay accounts till they were coming out of my ears. Everybody that got transferred, we had to type up a slip, and that was a training center for most of the service classes. All the Class A schools were there.
Sure. Sure.
And from there, I went over to the stewards' mates dispersing, which is the same base, except it was just for the stewards' mates.
And everything was typed and probably in triplicate or whatever.
And you couldn't make any mistakes. And I got, that was the only place where I was where there were 4 Ethels on the second floor of the dorm. And the first floor rooms on the second floor were Ethel Richards, Ethel Merriam, Ethel Moore. Whenever they said, telephone call, Ethel, they said, which one?
That's great. Did you stay at Bainbridge until the end of World War II, or were you stationed somewhere else?
Near the close of the war, they asked for volunteers to go to demobilization school. That was to train us to discharge the people.
Oh.
So I went to Great Lakes,
Yes.
and I was the control desk in the dispersing office, processing everyone out. Processed my own records out, too, when I was defrosted.
So you were, were you discharged at that time then?
I was discharged, I think it was February the 5th of 1946. They told me they would give me first class if I stayed in, but they didn't have reserves, women in the reserve, enlisted women in the reserves at that time.
Right.
So I said, no, I'm going out, and I'm going to use the GI Bill, and I'm going to school, which I did.
Okay. Where'd you go?
St. Louis U,
And you studied
accounting
accounting?
and finance. I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Commerce, with a major in accounting and finance.
I bet you were one of few women in those classes.
There were 3 of us
Yep.
that graduated. One got an associate's degree, and Jane Collins and I got bachelors.
Okay. And what was your plan at that time? Had you had any thought about going back into the service, even as
No, I got a
reservist, or-
call from somebody in the Navy Department about, just about a year later, I think it was, and they asked me if I wanted to go down to the foot of Ferry Street and see about organizing a section, I think they called it, of women. So I went down, and Admiral Bowman, he was a captain then, I think, he sent a lieutenant over and asked if they had any storekeepers or yeomen. There were 3 of us, and the next week we were in his division. And
In the
he's the one
reserves.
that asked me if I wanted to be an officer when I got my degree. And I said, no, sir. And he said, you're going to be, start filling out the papers. So I did.
And do you remember what that rank was? Just started at?
Ensign.
Ensign.
Yeah.
How long did you stay in the reserves?
I got credit for 38 out of the possible 40 years.
Wow.
That 1 year broke it up, that I was out.
And obviously retired as captain.
We were frozen at lieutenant commander for years.
Really?
Yeah, we couldn't, that was our glass ceiling.
Right.
And I think it was Captain Becker that asked me if I would buy new uniforms if I made commander. And I laughed and said, sure, I'll buy new uniforms. we're never going to make captain, we're frozen. Well, I made commander. I bought new uniforms.
And for those people who don't understand the difference between the ranks in the Navy compared to, say, the Army or other branches, a captain in the Navy is the equivalent to
Of a colonel.
A colonel in the...
It's an 06.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my husband retired as an 06 from the Air Force.
And I went through all the steps, ensign, JG, lieutenant, lieutenant commander, commander, and captain.
So you saw a lot of change in the military, and particularly in its acceptance of women, if that's the right phrase, or women's involvement in the military.
Admiral Bowman thought we were great. We worked. He's the one that pushed me all the time. He thought that people should be rewarded for what they did.
Now, this was reserve, so where did you work full-time? Or were you a full-time reservist?
No, it was, what was it? It was one night a week until they changed it to the weekends. And then it was one weekend a month.
Right.
Yeah.
So where were you?
I worked for Sidney Frager Company right after it was still hard to get jobs then, because all the guys were coming back too, as a bookkeeper. And then I applied to Harvey Eder and Company for a job as an accountant and auditor.
Great.
And I was with them for 16 years.
That's fabulous.
And then I went to Harold Bowman and Company, and I was there for 12 years. And then I worked for the Jewish Federation.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, that's the only place I ever got fired from. They got a new fiscal officer, and he wanted to bring in his own. But he let me move them into the Federation, the new Federation building, do all the work. And then when we had it all set up, he says, "We don't need you anymore."
So what was your position when you worked there?
Assistant to the fiscal officer.
It sounds to me like you've been something of a pioneer all your life.
Pretty much, I
You
guess.
think you're pretty, how would you describe yourself? Independent?
I think
You
everybody
haven't let whatever the rules were or the glass ceiling at the time was?
go with the flow, that's all. You do your work and do the best you can.
When you do you remember what year you retired from the reserves?
Sure. June the 16th, 1983. When I hit 60, I was out
Okay,
because I didn't make admiral.
right. It's the same way it was in the Air Force with my husband.
Of course, nobody has yet in the Supply Corps moment. I
Really?
don't think.
Really? I was
I
just
haven't heard
wondering if
many.
at that time you were one of the highest ranking women in the Navy or in the reserves, or do you know?
Well, no, there are other branches of the Navy, the line officers, I think they had an admiral. They had several then. Get the admiralship while they were head of something.
They weren't on ships yet.
No,
Right, yeah, I know that's recent.
I don't think they were back then
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah, or pilots.
You know, when you get to be 88, all the years run together.
Well, I think I was amazed that you remembered every address you lived in. I don't think I can do that. So you're out of the reserves in 1983. Have you stayed active with the military in any veterans organizations?
I'm a life member of Reserve Officers Association, Supply Corps. I'm a life member of Supply Corps, Athens, Georgia. And I'm a life member in the Naval Reserve Association, which they have changed the name of now to...
Is that the ROA? That's not...
ROA is the Reserve Officers
Officers, yeah.
Association. I'm a life member there too.
Yeah,
And
'cause my
I'm
husband's there.
also in Missouri, Military Officers Association, MOA. And I am the treasurer of the Navy League St. Louis Council. And I have been for the past 13 years.
Well, whether you see yourself as a pioneer or someone who broke glass ceilings for others,
Well,
I do.
I turned them down when they asked me if I wanted to be president of the Navy League, and I said no. I said, who would you get to do what I do? And they said, you're right, stay where you are.
Yeah. But I think it's something for you to have been, I guess, one of the first of the group that was
I was in the 9th
enlisted.
Regiment at Hunter College. They started out with the women going, they took officers training and they took mostly teachers then. And that was in August of 43. And I think it was like October or so when they took the first enlisted women
Really?
training. And most of that, I think, was in Stillwater, Oklahoma. I think, but I'm not sure of that.
Do you remember if there was parity in pay between the women and the men who were?
There was always in the military.
Yeah.
Whatever rank you were, you got the
That's
same.
what you got. Yeah. Yeah. Looking back on your military career, how do you feel about it now?
I think joining the Navy was the smartest thing I ever did. I went to school on the GI Bill,
Right.
and everything that I've got since then has come from the fact that I joined the Navy.
Tell me about your personal life. You mentioned your brother who passed away recently, last year.
He was my last sibling. He passed away on July the 14th. He would have been 83 years old yesterday.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
He was 5 years younger than me, and he copied everything I did.
I would have too.
And he wrote the nicest letter to me. When I went on the honors flight, they had them secretly write letters, and then they had mail call on the plane
Right.
coming home.
Right.
And he listed everything I did, things that I didn't even remember.
Listen, just hearing part of your story, I would have followed everything you did too. Sounds like a smart man. And then there was a third sibling. Do you have a sister? You mentioned
I had a sister. She died at 36, complications of diabetes.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
So,
And my older brother died just when he was 80, I think, and he was 3 years older than me. He wanted to be a Marine, but he was a diabetic and they wouldn't take him. Yeah. And that's when he found out he was a diabetic, is John
Really?
Jefferson Barracks. Yeah.
really?
They found it. Yeah.
How do you feel when you hear about the role women are allowed to play in the military today? As you mentioned, they're
The fighter
combat
pilots.
Fighter pilots.
They're doing a lot
everything.
of things that they don't even get credit for.
No.
That they,
Yeah, I mean, they're technically not
amazing.
supposed to be on the front line,
Yeah.
but they're out driving the trucks that are out there on the front
Yeah.
lines. So, yeah.
but they can't, I don't know if they can bear arms. I learned to shoot in the Navy as a sideline, where one of the gunner's mate would give us classes and shoot an M16 and a 45. So,
Well, that's great. You brought some pictures and perhaps some other things with you. Do you mind sharing them with us?
well, this is one of my first pictures.
So that was when you were first enlisted?
Yeah,
And that's your brother?
and that's my brother. And this is a picture taken.
You done? Okay.
This was taken in the barracks. That jumper belonged to one of the kids in the office that made 3rd class, and I sewed the badge on for him. So all of us had to have our picture taken in the jumper.
That's funny.
Because that's what I thought we would get as a uniform when we got in, but we didn't. We got this. And that's what I thought they should wear. And you know what? That's what they're wearing now. Of course, that jumper is folded up 3 times underneath.
Yeah, right,
Because it
right,
came
right.
down as long as my skirt.
Right, right.
And
Did you get that okay? Okay, great.
this is a picture of me when I was a storekeeper 2nd class. You got that?
Did you get that okay?
And this is my roommates at Hunter College.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna, just so he can just get this one because it's smaller, away
okay.
from the others, is that okay? Okay.
And this is a picture of the summer uniform. That was the 3rd one. And that was the smartest one. That you washed it and you put it back on. You didn't iron it. Some people didn't like it, but I thought it was great.
Okay.
And I'm a member of Oasis, and the woman that's in charge of
really?
Oasis
Yeah.
right now is a retired Air Force.
Oh, really?
And she said that was the smartest uniform, too,
What's her
when they
name?
had it. Barbara Turkington. And she retired as a lieutenant colonel.
Wow.
This is a postcard that I sent to my mother.
And again, can you get that or? Okay.
The Fuhrer's face and mine.
There you go.
And it was, see, it was free postage.
Yep.
And it's got the Section 38. And I was a seaman 2nd class at Naval Training Center at Bloomington, Indiana.
And you did have good handwriting.
And
Penmanship there.
yeah, this is a picture of one of the gals and myself in 1950 on training duty in the reserves. That's small. I don't know if you can get that.
Can you get that? Yeah. I wish I had that car now.
Yeah. This is a graduating class at Bloomington, Indiana. And I'm the one right to the right, my right, of the sign in front in the 1st row. Just
Okay.
because I was short, not anything else.
So, is this you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a reserve training picture. That's Lieutenant Merriam looking for gas, with the masks and all.
Can you get that?
It's pretty dark. It might not show very well. And this is a card I had made up around my 80th birthday. And on the back of it, it says, 80 and still swimming. And I'm 88 now and still swimming.
I saw it said Amherst. Do you know Rudy Oppenheim, who lives on Amherst?
Yeah, I know Rudy out.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a refugee.
Yes.
Yeah,
Survivor. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
from Shared Sedek.
And how about, can you show
Oh,
us some of your
this-
uniform?
This is my boot cap.
Cute. Still looks cute.
And this is the jacket from the uniform. And this
Now,
is,
this
This is
would have
cotton.
been what
that's a
rank?
storekeeper 2nd class.
Okay.
And after that, we got a seersucker gray and white uniform, which the officers' wives bought to use to scrub the floors with. And then they changed it to that one that's this one, the seersucker.
Right.
First, we had a dress with buttons 3/4 of the way down with a jacket. Then we had a dress with just down to the waist.
She always had to wear a skirt. Right.
Yeah. Oh, one time we had one gal, her name was Claire, and she wanted to keep her skirt real neat. She forgot to put it on, and she took her coat off in the mess hall
Oh my gosh.
and had a pink slip on.
At least she had a slip on. And
Well,
then
back then they always wore slips.
this would have been the,
That's the
the
skirt.
skirt.
From it. Yeah.
Great. Well, you look like you could still fit into it.
Well, I've been up and down a few times.
Okay.
But we used to have the Wave logo on the collars, which they did away with
Right.
when they became part of the regular Navy.
Right.
They didn't want to be associated
Right.
with women accepted for voluntary emergency service.
Right, which is what.
I don't know why they, because that I think is a bigger honor than just being
Yes.
in the military.
Right.
But they didn't like the accepted.
Is there anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to add?
No, that's pretty much all of it.
Okay.
I did retire from work from, I worked at Grace Hill after the Jewish Federation. And that's the last that I worked.
And did we get her birth date on? Okay, great.
Yeah, I was born on June the 16th, 1923. I went in the Navy June the 16th, 1943. I was kicked out of the Navy on June the 16th, 1983.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
You're welcome.
We appreciate your time and bringing everything in. Thank you.
And I volunteer at Oasis, and we did oral histories for a lot of people.
Great.
And we did them for Clayton for their centennial, for some
wow.
of their people.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is a song that was written by one of the people in our class that never got much attention, and I think it's the best one we had. Bearing our ensign high, to oppressors now our challenge we have hurled. We will free our Navy's men who will free the world. And I think that fits right in with the Waves.
Absolutely.
Exactly what they did, and that's it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your personal history and a part of the military history that doesn't often get told. So thank you very much.
Yeah, my niece did not know that her father was in the Coast Guard and not the Navy until he died, and they had to dig out his papers.
Oh, really?
She thought he had the Navy uniform on. I said, well, it's the same uniform. In wartime, they're part of the Navy.
Right, right.
It's only lately that they became so important in being a home security.
Right, right.
They're getting their due now.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very interesting.